Hello, everybody. I think there's only one person present currently. This is the first time I'm doing a free astrology live stream, so apologies for any slowness or glitches along the way. But I will be offering today horary readings, which are basically readings like one would receive with the tarot, but you cast the chart of the moment that the question is understood by the astrologer in the location that the astrologer is in. I'm in Dornach, Switzerland currently, so that's what this chart represents. But once I get a question to work with, I will update the chart to the moment that we're at now and have a go at interpreting what the chart is speaking. Oh, and I need to fix something real quick because it needs to be a different house system. There we go. So I invite you, those who are viewing right now, to put a question in the chat if you have one. It needs to be something, something that you care about, not something just super trivial. And we'll have a go at seeing what the chart of the moment has to say about it. And to open, I used to do a live stream weekly of reading and interpreting weekly verses from Rudolf Steiner's Calendar of the Soul, and I think it's a good thing to begin with, so I will do that. The Calendar of the Soul is essentially a poetic following of the light cycle throughout the year as a kind of spiritual process, and I'm practicing, well, Hori astrology here, but as well natal and transit astrology a practice. And I'll be doing natal live streams for free, 30 minutes each in the future. If you're interested in that, you can sign up at this Google Doc. And I'm gonna like pre-screen people before I bring them on Zoom so nobody's being crazy on Zoom just right off the chat on YouTube because you can get trolls that way. So I invite you to sign up if you'd like a free reading for 30 minutes on live stream. But yeah, as I wait for questions to come in, I'll go ahead and recite the verse for the week from Rudolf Steiner's Calendar of the Soul, which, as I was saying, follows the light cycle of the year and is very much in tune with the tropical zodiac that Hellenistic and Western astrologers work with. Let me find that real quick. So this is a verse for the light as it begins to descend. We're in the process of descent now. And this translation from Steiner's German comes from Daisy Alden. And she writes, "Thus speaks the cosmic word, which I, through gates of senses, might lead into the depths of soul. Fill full your depth of spirit from out my width of worlds to find in future me in you." This is narrating like the descent of the fullness of the light down into the darkness of the earth as we approach the northern hemisphere or the winter solstice. Pardon me. So for those who just arrived, I'm offering free horary readings today, which is basically like doing tarot with the chart of the moment, the astrological chart of the moment when the question is understood by the astrologer. So if you have a question, it could be something like, "I lost my wallet. Where is my wallet?" Or "Does he like me back?" Or "When will I hear about the job application?" Or "What will result from my applying for this particular job?" Questions like this. So I invite you to put a specific question in the chat, and once I receive one, I will cast the chart for the moment I've understood it, and we will go from there. All right, any takers? Are y'all being shy? Somebody ask a question. Let's go. It's gonna be fun. How's everybody doing today? You don't have to ask a question. You can just hang out. But yeah, let me know how you're doing. Any friends here? I'm gonna fill up some water. It's quite hot here while I wait. Pastor, hello. Welcome, Pastor. Hi, Pastor. So I am only doing horror readings right now, which is I cast the chart for the moment someone asks me a question. But if you would like a free natal reading, 30-minute natal reading, which I'm going to do live stream every Sunday for an hour, you're welcome to sign up at this Google Docs form and I can do it in the future. But today I'm just doing horror readings. In the future, on Sundays from 6 to 7 p.m. Central European time, I'll be doing a mix of horror and natal readings. So I could do that in the future. And feel free to sign up at that Google form if you would like that. But today I'm just doing horror readings, which are more like tarot card readings, but with astrology. So one sometimes like a classic example of horror astrology is where did my dog go? Or am I going to marry this person? Or should I marry this person? Or yeah, basically we can ask all kinds of questions. Hopefully, I think there's a bit of a delay in the chat and in me speaking, but hopefully, let me know, Pastor, if you're still not sure what a horary reading is. This is basically the divinatory use of astrology, which is very, yeah, bound up with its origins. The origins of astrology were divinatory, and later became more focused on individuals in the natal chart, which is what most people are interested in nowadays. But horary can be really helpful too and fun. I need to take one of these charts off. Okay, yeah, no rush. Hmm. Pastor, thank you for that question. Would you be willing to give it a little bit more specificity? So when you say different, what do you mean? What is that in the context of? Just gonna post this on Instagram so people know the live stream's happening elsewhere as well. Yeah, Pastor, I think this does seem more like a natal type of question. I'm not sure how helpful Hori will be in getting at that question. I think I still need a bit more specificity. I appreciate the kind of poetic characterization of it. For anyone who's just arrived, offering free Hori astrology for the next hour, which is basically like doing tarot with the chart of the moment that the question is understood by the astrologer in their location. So if you have a specific question, please put it in the chat. Specific is much easier to work with than vague or uh personal, psychological. That would be probably natal is a better form of astrology for getting at that question, Pastor. So please feel free to sign up at that Google Docs form and maybe we can do a natal chart reading during a live stream in the future. You could go ahead and ask the question, Luke, and we can see if it is. Yeah, let's see what we can do with that. I'm trying to get this to where it has a different house system. All right, Luke. So the question is when or whether the two friends will reconnect. So in horary astrology, what we do is we look at the ascendant and consider the ascendant as the representative as well as the moon of the person asking the question. In this case, it is Saturn, but for some reason, hold on, the ascendant is not showing up. Hmm. Okay. Why is it not showing up? Okay. So the ascendant is in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is in a debilitated position. Saturn currently in the sky is in what we call fall. So when we consider a horary question, we consider the dignity of the planets involved. So the ascendant, representing the person asking the question, is ruled by Saturn. So then we look at Saturn's dignity. Saturn's not doing very well in Aries. It's a difficult position for Saturn to be in. And so then we look to the friend uh in the with the seventh house, which is often the other person if the person asking the question is asking about another person. So we look at the moon because Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the moon is currently in Pisces. And it's another thing that we do with horary astrology is look at the moon as a co-significator of the person asking the question, especially their emotional state. So is it interesting that the moon signifying the emotional state of the person asking the question is also the significator of the person asking the question is asking about. So that suggests to me that there's a kind of emotional consideration of the person, Luke, that Luke is thinking about, and also what we look at with horary astrology, trying to get a sense for like timing, for instance, like when something might come to pass. We look at the moon because the moon moves the fastest, and the moon is soon to make a conjunction to Saturn. It's got about uh, almost like 30 degrees, but that's not, it's the next sign over. So the fact that the moon will eventually make a conjunction with the ruler of the ascendant, which it represents the person asking the question, suggests that it may happen soon, like within the month, possibly, or within a few days. Depends on, yeah, the moon, because it's traveling through a whole sign, or it could be like literally the moon moving to a new sign, which takes a couple days. So I would say that this might happen soon. Yes. Yeah, I think it may happen soon, actually, and it is likely that there will be a reconnection. So I hope that was helpful, Luke. If you have any kind of additional questions you'd like to ask in connection with this one, we can like continue to look at the chart. But and in the meantime, if anybody else has a question, feel free to put it in the chat. Um, might be helpful if it's because we're, in horary, like we're working with the chart of the moment. If it's a question that's similar to Luke's, maybe consider a different question that's not so interpersonal because then we can look at other parts of the chart and have more to say. Or it could just be a totally different interpretation that is interpersonal, but bringing in other dynamics. But I'll just look at it again and see if there's anything else I can think of. We could say that, hmm, the person that Luke is asking about, because the benefics Venus and Jupiter are in the house that represents the friend, that this friend is probably in a good state currently. Yeah, Steiner had some interesting things to say about astrology. I'm actually in Dornoch right now, about to work on a postdoc project with someone who's writing a book on his economic theory, but I'm also going to be exploring an independent project um, in the archives, looking hopefully I'll find some stuff at Steiner's use of astrology because he did use it. He talked a lot about it. He was critical of the contemporary orientation to it in his time, and I think he'd be very critical of it in certain respects, depending on who we're looking at today, and of our time as well. But yeah, so anyway, I'm excited to see what I can find in the archives regarding Steiner's use of astrology. I'm glad you think so. Hmm. Luke, maybe if you're still here, I just also noticed that Mars is has just made an opposition in the sky to the ruler of the ascendant, which represents you, Saturn. And so the conflict, well, the intensity of the conflict, it's the two malefics opposing each other, and actually Mars is in a really difficult position too. Um, Suggests that, well, maybe you were kind of uh especially impacted by this. But and it's kind of, well, it seems to be kind of like maybe even fresh, but Saturn's going retrograde and Mars is moving forward into Libra. So it's definitely like starting to cool off, whatever this is. And I wonder if like maybe there was some kind of like ideological differences going on with Mars and Libra in the ninth house. And like maybe somebody not wanting to back down on their position or compromise. Just some thoughts looking further at that. And maybe if there is reconciliation, it could come about because the moon will conjoin Saturn and Aries, like through a mutual recognition of like, okay, this is how you see things. I'm glad to know that nails it. So yeah, maybe reconciliation because Aries is this sign of like individuality. Um, and so maybe that will be a factor in like coming to maybe just agreeing to disagree, maybe. Whereas like Mars and Libra, like the conflict might have been especially revolving around like I don't know if there's been any patterns of like not representing one's point of view or like being overly compromising or something like that, but that's kind of the shadow of Libras is trying to maintain harmony at the expense of authenticity. But true friendship is not just maintaining harmony all the time. The best friends are the ones you can fight with and then still, you know, love at the end of the day. For anybody who's just tuning in, I'm offering free Hori astrology, which is basically like astrology, tarot, doing tarot with astrology, the chart of the moment that the astrologer understands the question being asked, cast in the location that the astrologer is located. But if you scroll up in the chat, you'll see a Google form if you're interested in more of like a natal chart reading. I will be doing those also during these weekly live streams for 30 minutes per person, maybe just one each time. So if you're interested in that, feel free to sign up and we can do a free natal reading in the future. I'm glad to hear that, Luke. Wow, look at that kite that's been formed and now separating with Mars at the top, like in Saturn, Neptune down there at the bottom. That's quite a configuration we've had in the skies right now. So lots of intensity with the two malefics in the sky opposing each other lately, and both in difficult placements for their character. But it's also coinciding with the time where we have the two benefics conjoining in the sign of Jupiter's exaltation, Cancer. So we've got like some really good energy at the same time that there's some really difficult energy in the air. All right, friends, if you're just arriving and you have a question that you'd like to pose to the astrological oracle, much like we might pose a question to a tarot deck, feel free to drop it in the chat. And if it's not too close to the question that Luke already asked, um, I will work with it. Just gonna put this on another social media app to let people know we're all here. How are y'all doing? Any takers? Maybe I'll just play some music in the meantime. I'll play some relaxing Greek temple music. This is what I listen to when I'm reading and writing. I can't listen to anything else and think. Greetings, friends. If you have not been here before, I am hosting for 30 more minutes, free Hori astrology. Also, if you're interested in getting a natal chart reading on live stream in the future, you can sign up here where I screen for trolls and get your information. So I'll post that in the chat again. It's already in the chat, but my computer is starting to go really slow. Greetings. Any takers? Any Hori questions? Any questions for the astrology equivalent of the tarot deck? Can you hear the music? Does it sound glitchy? Greetings. If you have a question, feel free to ask it in the chat. Could be, is my lost cat ever coming home? I hope so. It could be, when will the divorce be finalized? It could be, yeah, anything. Well, there's questions that are, as Pastor was asking earlier, that are probably more appropriate for natal. The more open-ended questions, those are the more appropriate to explore with a natal chart and transits potentially. Greetings, friends. If you have a question, put it in the chat and we will see. what the chart of the moment has to say. Or just say hi. You could just say hi and let me know your name if it's not clear from your username. It's quite hot here. My friend was nice enough to let me use her apartment because I don't have Wi-Fi in my apartment currently. And she's on the top floor, so it's quite hot, but I opened the window, so it's not so bad. I'm taking care of her lovely plants. Pastor, is there something specific that you would like to be lucky with? Like what would you specifically like to have good fortune with regard to, like money, love? Is there someone that you like? Maybe maybe you're married and that's not an issue. Um, are you hoping to land a new house? Something like that? Something specific? Health. Okay. Would you like to say anything more specific about that? Are you currently struggling with any kind of illness? Like specifically? Once I have a better sense of the specifics of the question, I'll go ahead and cast the chart. I can kind of see it now. Greetings, friends. If you have not been here before, I am doing Horary Astrology, free Horary Astrology for the next 20 minutes. Every Sunday, I'll do some Horary Astrology and Natal Astrology, just in general. Okay, well, are you healthy usually, Pastor, or blood? Okay. Hmm. All right, well, let's go ahead and cast the chart. So we'll cast it for now. It hasn't really changed that much since last time. So generally, when we look at astrology, horary astrology, we, get a sense for the person asking the question by looking at the ascendant ruler, and which is Saturn in this case, as it was in the last, and its dignity. So Saturn's not so happy, right? In the sign of Aries, it's called fallen when it's in the sign of Aries. So it's sort of debilitated. It's not doing so great. And the moon can be kind of like represent the emotional like attitude of the person asking the question. And currently the moon is heading towards the ascendant. So maybe right now you're kind of been feeling out of sorts about this question with regard to your health, but and maybe there's been some confusion around it. But the moon will eventually conjoin the ruler of the ascendant, Saturn. So there might be soon like more clarity about this question, but I would say um we look at the sixth house as well when it comes to health. And the sixth house ruler is Mercury, and it's in the sign of Leo. And I would associate Leo with the blood, actually, and the heart, because it's ruled by the sun. And it's retrograde right now. So it's sort of like the moon being in the sign before the ruler of the ascendant, there's like maybe some confusion, maybe like I don't know if you've had tests recently that you're waiting on results to come back. Mercury has been retrograde for a little while. I'm gonna add another chart so we can see um, when it's going to turn direct, maybe, and we can get a sense of a change in fortune or a change in understanding in relation to the health, the blood. Um, so all right, let's look real quick. Let's select days and oops, I don't want to do that. All right, okay, real quick. Okay, so this is going to go one day at a time. Oh, wow. Okay. So today is Mercury is retrograde, but tomorrow it goes direct and it stations. So maybe like in the next couple of days, there will be some kind of slow reversal of events, maybe. Again, I don't know if you've been to the doctor recently or had any tests done, but or if there's any sort of communication around your health that you've had with someone else that's left you in some state of confusion. But I would say, yes, I think that it's eventually going to clear up and that it will be in your favor, I think, because Mercury won't be coming into proximity with the sun again. So maybe there was some moment, maybe like around the time that Mercury was combust with the sun, that you experienced some, I don't know, something with your health that made you question whether or not the blood is doing well. But I think that's going to kind of, you're going to get further out from that and no longer be concerned and feel okay. And maybe the moon coming to join the ruler of the ascendant will also like reflect a kind of emotional like congruence or at oneness with yourself. Whereas before, with this chart of the moment, it's currently in aversion. So maybe there's some like anxiety out of sorts. But so there's some speculation with the chart. What, does any of this resonate with you, Pastor? Feel free to add any details. Greetings, friends. If you just arrived, we're doing Hori astrology today. If you would like to have a free natal reading live stream in the future, feel free to sign up at this Google form that I put in the chat. Um, yeah, kinda interesting, Pastor. Well, feel free if you want to share anything, but no pressure at all. Um, yeah, yeah, it was vague. Christine, yes, we are asking questions. That's what Horary astrology is all about. I mean, honestly, good natal astrology is helped by having specific questions, but Horary astrology it's a more like obviously divinatory form of astrology, and it's basically like working with tarot cards, but you work with the chart of the moment. And yeah, so if you have a question that, is of importance to you that you'd like to pose here, we can explore that. I'll be here for like 14 more minutes. Um, Pastor just asked a question about health, and earlier Luke asked an interpersonal question about a conflict with a friend. So it'd probably be best if the question were different than those. And if you don't have a question this time, you can save it for another week. you can sign up. I also have places on that form for future horary readings, assuming that the answer to your question doesn't come before a future live stream. Hey, Shelby. Yeah, let's hear your question. Go ahead. Okay. Um, all right, let's look at that real quick. On Monday, I found a job in August 31st. All right, okay. I am casting the chart now. So the question is, is the question, will you get the job, or is basically that's the question, right? Kristan, will I get the job? Okay. All right. So as with before, um, when we work with Hori astrology, Shelby, and I'll get to yours as well after this one. We look at the ruler of the ascendant to get a sense for the individual asking the question. And welcome, friends. Right now, the ruler of the ascendant is Saturn in a debilitated position. But for a question regarding career, we look at the 10th house, which in this case is ruled by Mars. And Mars is also in a difficult position right now. So we look also at like future aspects between Mars and hmm, Mars will eventually be making a square to Venus and Jupiter, which are very well placed. Those are the benefics. So, it like there could be some good news, but the moon is going to oppose the ruler of the 10th house and conjoin the ruler of your ascendant, of the ascendant, so the questioner. So I'll just say that it's not, it doesn't seem like the most favorable chart for success. But if there is success, that it will be difficult at first. And yeah, there may be a bit of a kind of power struggle. Maybe that's just the interview process itself, but I wouldn't go into it expecting that it's just going to be a smooth process. But again, as I mentioned, so Mars will be making an aspect to Venus and Jupiter, but the sooner aspect to be made will be from the moon to Venus and Jupiter. So there's at least like some sense that you're going to be feeling good about it. So I would say go for it and just do your best in submitting the portfolio and just sort of release any attachment to whether or not you actually get the job, because it will be worth the process of going through the application and building the portfolio and preparing it. And it may, if you don't end up getting it, it may lead to something even better. So I hope that's helpful. Let me see, Kristan, if I were to get it, I would. Yeah, that makes sense. So there's like some difficulty just baked into the whole enterprise because it's something that's not already just like smoothly unfolding. And maybe that's even something to mention. Because I would say like because the seventh house relates to like people we deal with, um, the people you're dealing with are at least they seem to be nice. So I would maybe just be transparent with them about the fact that you're trying to cultivate the skills that are expected, and that you have this kind of growth mindset. Because that's one way of thinking about the tense relationship between Mars and Saturn is like through hard work and discipline, like mastery can come about. And so I wish you all the blessings in that endeavor, Kristan, and I hope that, but let me know what happens. I would love to hear about it. I do think that the moon, that there's some kind of like kindness coming from the people you're dealing with because the moon is also in the sign that is ruled by Jupiter. So there's mutual reception between the moon and Jupiter. So there's some kind of ease, at least relationally. All right, Shelby. Shelby says, been feeling a lot of pressure at work with stepping up, growing further into my leadership role. This has caused a bit of stress and anxiety. Will I soon start to feel more comfortable and at ease? Well, okay, now I'm gonna cast a chart. It won't be much different than Kristan's, and it's kind of a similar question. So again, um, we look at the ruler of the ascendant, this in this case, Saturn, fallen in Aries. So it does describe like the person asking the question being in an uncomfortable position. So, like in the Hellenistic astrology, the signs were described as the temples of the gods, and certain planets do really well in the houses that they rule, for example, and in other houses. For instance, Saturn is exalted in Libra, which is the opposite sign of Aries. But when it's in the signs that it doesn't it's like when it's in a sign that it's fallen or in detriment in, it's like it's almost like it's in exile, like it doesn't have the resources it needs, so it feels stressed out. And one way of thinking about okay, interesting. So one way they talk about in Hellenistic astrology, like whether a planet can kind of like function well, even if it's in a bad house, bad temple, or a difficult temple, is whether or not the host of that temple, in this case, Mars rules Aries, where Saturn is. Does Mars see Aries? And is Mars well played? Mars well placed? And Mars is actually also in a difficult position right now, so Mars isn't very comfortable. So maybe Shelby, I don't know if it's like maybe your employers are also kind of in an uncomfortable position right now, and they might be beholden to someone else because Mars is in the eighth house in this chart. And the eighth house is associated with like what we owe other people and like kind of like karmic debts or financial debts or just the situation where we're kind of bound in some way to another. So this kind of maybe suggests that your supervisors or your boss or whoever that is sort of like in charge of you is also in a difficult position. Um, so then we ask again, is the ruler of the temple that Mars is in doing well? And Mars is in the temple of Venus in Libra. Uh, it's in the sign of Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So then we look to Venus. How is Venus doing? Well, Venus is doing very well. And this is kind of like connecting as well to what I was talking about with Kristan. Venus and Jupiter are together. They're the planets that uh are well, they were called the benefics. They're the ones that bring the blessings. And Jupiter is currently in Cancer. They're both in Cancer, but Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So it's like that's the temple that it just really shines and it brings like it's just like where good fortune like touches down on earth and all the good things in life can come about. And they're about to make a conjunction. They're 1 degree apart from each other. So, and the moon, as I was saying, in connection with Kristan's chart, is soon to make a trine to that Venus-Jupiter conjunction. So I would say that um, it might you might continue to feel some discomfort with like where you're at, like the pressure of stepping up. And but I think that um, it may really come through the interpersonal dimension of the work environment, that you'll start to feel more comfortable, like maybe just accepting that, it's normal for it to feel like a lot of pressure and like stressful and difficult when you've stepped into when you've stepped up. And maybe just being honest about that with your coworkers or your supervisors, and just expressing that you're doing your best, and just having maybe not having to, if at all you're kind of like trying to not let that show, maybe being more transparent about that will allow you to feel more comfortable, where you can embrace the fact that it's just, a growing edge, and knowing that eventually Saturn's going retrograde, the ruler of your ascendant representing you. And it's moving already. Mars already made that opposition to Saturn, which is Mars is ruling the 10th house, the career house. So there's like the tension is going to start abating, but it's it's not going to go as fast as like the good feeling that might arise through interpersonal connections at work. Um, so that's what I would say, Shelby. I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any additional information or thoughts you'd like to share in connection with that. Or if there's anything about the nature of like the stress or the pressure in particular. And great, Rotero, I will send you an email for to come on for future readings. I might if you don't seem like a troll, I might let you on Zoom and we can be on Zoom together to do like a live reading outside the chat. Thank you all. I'm about to wrap up, but I'm definitely going to wait and see if Shelby has any concluding thoughts. But I really appreciate everybody who's tuned in and engaged. It's been fun. I hope it was helpful. And yeah, I'll be doing this every Sunday. So in the future, I'll have this Google form. So I'll have people on for maybe like 30-minute natal reading, and then the other 30 minutes will be horary. I think that's probably how I'll do it. Probably mix and match. But yeah, if you would like a natal reading in the future, let me know. Oh yeah, well then Shelby, I think that if you do communicate that it will be favorably received. That's funny, Pastor. Yeah, I think I know that song. Yeah, yeah, you know what you're talking about, and that's just part of it, right? I definitely, I'm feeling imposter syndrome right now. Every time we, are at a new growing edge, they say fake it till you make it, right? There's something true in that. And it's just a growing edge, but you got it. You've just remember all the other times you've, been, in a new position with a lot of responsibility, and it's like, and you've like grown through that. I've seen you grow through that. You've grown so much. Oh, thanks, Shelby. You're the best. All right. Well, much love to everyone, and I'll close out like I started with the verse from Rudolf Steiner's Calendar of the Soul, which, if you weren't here for the beginning, is a book of verses for each week of the year that follows the light cycle, which the Western astrological zodiacal system is based on. It's the cycle of the light. So it's this wonderful book of verses to attune our souls to this spiritual process of the light cycle throughout the year. So as Daisy Aldan translate Steiner's German. Thus speaks the cosmic word, which I, through gates of senses, might lead into the depths of soul. Fill full your depth of spirit from out my width of worlds to find in future me in you. This is like a reference to whatever it is that me that was at its fullest at summer solstice and starts to kind of come down and inward as we approach the darkness of winter. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope you will come around next time. And yeah, thanks again. Thanks for being here, Shelby. Love you. All right.